I'd like to call to order the January 19th meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Mr. Board Secretary, this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act.
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Everybody please stand and join the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Bauka.
Here.
Mrs. Backo.
Here.
Mr. Bashada.
Here.
Mrs. Bloom.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
And Mr. McEnroe.
Present. I need a motion to go into closed.
So moved.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Bashada, and who seconded?
I did.
And Mr. Pinto.
Seconded.
Please read the resolution.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, permits the exclusion of public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore it be resolved by the Board of Education, Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of any action upon the hereinafter specified subject matter. General nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, negotiations, grievance, 2015-71 hearing, attorney-client privilege, health benefits. There isn't anything for football matters. I didn't list that because we have it, right? It is anticipated at this time the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Bauka.
Yes.
Mrs. Backo.
Yes.
Mr. Bashada.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mr. Sayak.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
And Mr. McEnroe.
Yes. The board will go into executive session, reconvene in public at 7:30.
Make a motion, we return to public.
At this time, I'd like to call to order the January 19, 2016 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Board Secretary, this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act.
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bauka.
Here.
Mrs. Backo.
Here.
Mr. Bashada.
Here.
Mrs. Bloom.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. McEnroe.
I am present. Can you synopsize executive session, please?
In executive session this evening on the personnel, including but not limited to agenda items were discussed, negotiations, grievance hearing 2015-71, attorney-client privilege, health benefits.
Okay, student council representative, Mr. Christopher Bruce. What's going on around campus?
Thank you. Things are just starting to pick back up again after the holiday break. We will have our winter pep rally January 29th. Student council will be visiting the senior center in February to do a tricky tray and different activities. Today, the peer leadership program took a trip to the Ronald McDonald House and prepared a meal for all the families that stay there that have children in the hospital in New Brunswick. So that went really well. It was great to get involved in that. And students will be preparing for their second marking period quarterlies that begin on Friday.
Good. Anybody have any questions, Mr. Bruce? Okay, thank you for the summary. Dr. Lau, we have a couple of presentations. Yeah, before you go ahead and do that, I just want to make a statement that the reason that we were delayed and closed is the board is discussing an issue that I will be speaking about in the discussion part of the agenda about a health benefits matter that we are involved in. So I will make my comments at the discussion part of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. McEnroe. We do have two very important presentations. As everyone knows, we are well into the budget development calendar. Just a word of promotion, at our next Board of Education meeting, that would be on February 2nd, the principals in each one of our schools will be presenting their proposed discretionary supply budget. That is the next set of presentations that you will see. However, tonight, Dr. Shediak will be presenting the 2016-17 proposed curriculum and instruction budget, and then Mr. Glock Malloy will follow her with the 2016-17 proposed technology budget. Dr. Shediak?
Thank you. my pleasure to present to you tonight some of the highlights of our budget for the upcoming school year, the proposed budget as it relates to curriculum and instruction. Okay, this slide just talks a little bit about our mission statement to provide a quality education for all of our students, and that the district is committed to a continual process of curriculum review and improvement. And in addition, there's a strong tradition of professional learning for staff to support the instruction in the classroom. And here I list some of our goals. Okay, and now I'll talk to you a little bit about the proposed budget, which will support these endeavors. The first part of the budget is textbooks. Here I have across the top, and this is district-wide for kindergarten through high school. It's for all of the schools, all of the departments. I have the 2015 orders, the 2016 orders to date. That's what's been ordered to date. The 2016 adjusted budget and the proposed budget. You notice that there is a change in the budget, and I'd like to just give you a brief explanation of a few of the reasons why we are looking for an increased amount in the budget. We're looking for some new high school math textbooks to align with the Common Core, specifically for the courses Algebra 1B, Algebra 2, and Geometry. And in addition, we are looking for additional texts for the algebra classes in 8th grade. New science texts at both the high school and middle school to align with the next generation science standards. We have new standards that are in effect as of September 2016 for grades 6 through 12 science. So we are looking for new materials to go along with that. We are looking for additional biology texts due to, we anticipate having additional students taking biology as 9th graders next year. We're going to be adding some sections of that. We are looking for literature circle novels for the middle school and new texts for English 12, reading grades 9 through 12, and the drama courses. In addition, at the elementary level, many of our science and social studies textbooks are rather old, and what we are looking for are leveled books for the students at those grade levels for science and social studies. So it will be more integrated within the language arts, and they will be on the topics that we are covering, but they will be leveled to the children's reading levels. And then replacement texts at all levels, and some additional text due to shifting enrollment as our enrollment changes from year to year. Okay, curriculum writing. We've been very busy over the past several years writing curriculum. Actually, since June of 2014, we have either completed or in the process of revising 80 different curriculum. We took a good hard look at that recently because the state came in to monitor us for CUSAC, so they really focused a lot on curriculum and instruction. But we need to continue that process because we need to rewrite science courses in grades 6 through 12 to align with the new standards. Elementary health courses, we're looking to revise communication arts through television at the high school. Social studies in grades kindergarten, 1st grade, and 7th grade, and at the high school, world history. We're looking at revising language arts literacy in grades kindergarten through 2. We're currently working on grades 3, 4, and 5 right now, and we have finished the middle school and the majority of the high school. And then high school foreign language courses. So we are asking for that budget to be $50,000 for the upcoming school year. That would allow us to write approximately 40 different curricula. Professional development. The district this year put a real emphasis on professional development with the new position of Supervisor of Professional Development, Sayreville University. So we want to continue that, and we're looking at pretty much flat funding there for this upcoming school year. Very excited. We just received word on Friday that we had applied for a grant, Mrs. Johnson and myself, for achievement coaches. It was a competitive grant through the state, and we were successful in that. So that's something that will really help us in our professional development endeavors. But we do still have a need. We have Sayreville University, which is really getting up and running this year. Staff Development Day presenters, out-of-district workshops and conferences. We want to continue to focus on readers and writers workshop models. As a matter of fact, we just received information today about the Summer Institute for Readers and Writers Workshop that we've been attending the past several years. And just ongoing, sustained, in-district professional development. Okay, other object. Now, the principals are going to be talking about this in more depth when they do their presentation, but I wanted to highlight one part of it that is very directly related to the curriculum and the instruction. And that constitutes about $116,000 of the $143,000 is related to leveled books for classroom libraries to support our district literacy initiative, and novels. We're looking at 2 per grade level in grades 3 through 5. Okay. And one of the things that we're working to do, and we've been working on a number of years, is building up the classroom libraries with leveled books. We want to continue doing that. It's very important for the Reader's Workshop model. And in addition, especially in the younger grades, we are beginning to provide the students with books to take home, to practice reading at home every night. Each child takes home a bag of books, 3 to 5 books. They practice with them at home for a week, and then they exchange them the following week. Okay? And they have little activities that are related to that. And it's helping us greatly in our literacy initiative, and we need to continue that, but we do need books to be able to work with that. Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Doctor, I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
First of all, the books that you're presenting that you would like to purchase, are these books going to be available also online for the students?
There are some books that are available online. A lot of the ones, we have purchased some online books, but we're also looking for books that, when the students take them home, they're also used in the classroom. They're part of the classroom library, but then they'll be taking them home, too.
The reason I ask, say a student forgot their book, and there's a holiday weekend, turning on a computer and getting into the book, they could complete their assignment that they have when they return back to classroom. That's why I'm wondering if, looking into purchasing books, that we can find out if the manufacturer or distributor will allow these books to be printed online for our students.
Sure. For the majority of textbooks that are published these days, they are all available online.
Okay,
So-
the second question I have for you, a while back, there's a lot of other schools in the area that have been doing it, working on the credit for college. In other words, the programs that, taking courses here in Sayreville, would simulate what the courses offered at Middlesex County College or Union County College or Somerset County College. Have we developed that program, and is it going to be implemented?
We currently have 6 courses that are offered here at the high school for direct college credit. Okay, we have Fundamentals of College Algebra, which is through Middlesex County College, Pre-Calculus and Calculus, those are all through Middlesex County College. We have Tomorrow's Teachers, which is through Rider University. We have Honors Accounting, which I believe is also, that's either through Middlesex or...
Middlesex.
I think that's through Middlesex. And then we have our English 12 class is available through Middlesex.
Do we have good participation in these programs?
Yes, we do. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
And we're always looking to increase that. We are certainly looking to do more and more of that.
Mr. Sack.
Dr. Shediak, you and I had corresponded regarding the curriculum writing via email. What drives the timing of that? Because we're approving curricula tonight, and as you indicated, a lot of this is already in production, which says no matter how I vote, it doesn't make a difference because we're already doing it. But then, by the same token, if it all came to us in August, right after the summer, and we approved it, then as teachers are walking in, they're getting brand-new curricula, which doesn't really work either.
Correct.
Is this a budgetary-driven process that we can alter the timing or the phasing of how we budget? Is it that the bulk of the curriculum needs to be written in the summer because that's when the faculty has the time to do it? What drives that?
It's not budgetary, okay? That much it's not. A lot of it has to do with the time. We tried something this past year where we approved teachers to write curriculum, and this was through discussions with the association. We approved teachers in June to write curriculum that will be implemented in September of 2016, I'm sorry. So we wanted to give them a summer plus the whole year to work on it. It's due to us by June 1st of this year. It's due to the supervisors. So what we are planning to do is then have the supervisors review it in June, then it will come to me in July, but in the meantime, what we've been doing is we've been sending drafts of the curriculum out to the teachers as soon as we get drafts of it, especially even if it's the first 2 units, just to get them started on it. And the teachers who are actually writing the curriculum at the department meetings, they bring it forward to the other teachers and they have discussions about it, and they try to get input from other teachers. We normally have 2 teachers writing each curriculum, but we try to get as many of the other staff members involved as we can.
Okay, we're doing all of our curricula that way now, or is that only a certain subsegment of it?
You know what, we're doing it on somewhat of a rolling basis because it takes a long time to get it done. As a matter of fact, hopefully tomorrow or Thursday, a posting will go out for some additional courses that we would like to get done, so we can start to hire people and get started on the whole process. And if we can get some of those done for September, that would be wonderful, but we may not. So,
Okay.
you know, it's...
I have a question. You said that the teachers that are writing it bring it to the other teachers for their input.
Yes.
Where?
At department meetings, grade level meetings, and so on. They'll share it with them.
So at the department meetings, they're bringing it to them, and they're giving their input, and then...
It may be at department meetings, it may be through email, it may be informally, it's through a variety of,
But you know that's being done?
yes.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public on Dr. Shediak's presentation? None? Okay, next.
Evening, everyone. For the 16-17 technology budget, a lot of different members of the school community contribute to developing this budget. Directors, principals, central office staff, supervisors, teachers, and it impacts every building and every department in the district because at this point technology is far-reaching into just about everything we do. At this point last year, when we presented the technology budget, I had already met with Dr. Labby and Mr. D'Andrea and with the Finance Committee, and we had already gone through a number of cuts before the presentation had taken place. Prior to going through those reductions, we had an initial proposal from all the departments of about $2.9 million. We ended up at the start of 15-16 with a budget of 1.7, a little over 1.7 million. So at this point in the year, there's still a lot to be done with the technology budget. The initial proposals from all buildings and departments at this stage of the game for 16-17 is 3.6 million. There is a lot that goes into that and a lot of changes that can take place within that budget and a lot of great things that we're looking to do in the future. From that 3.6 are renewals, including our lease payments, things that we have in existence, things that we're paying for currently. Those will renew at about 1.6 million for next year, which is slightly less than this year's budget. New projects, including several substantial major projects, will come in at just over 1.9 million in the proposed budget. Those major projects consist of a few items, some that I've talked about before in front of the board, some that we've talked about in committee meetings. The biggest one there is our virtual desktops. Through the help of the technology team, a lot of outside research, we've looked at ways to refresh the computer systems within the district. Our lease for the vast majority of our desktop and laptop computers has expired at this point. The original concept was that they were on a 5-year cycle, which would have been last year. We proposed upgrading any system so that we could do further research into virtual desktops and other means. After that research was completed, we came up with a number of about $850,000 to convert our existing desktop computers into virtual machines. That's not based on a per machine cost, that's based on a per user cost. That's how the virtual desktops are allocated. We compared this to what it would cost to actually replace that number of computers within the district, and the cost to replace with current updated computers comparable to what we had when computers came in 5 years ago would have been about 1.3 million. So the cost savings for a virtual desktop is substantial over that of actually just outright replacing the computers. That would be a cost for doing the entire district in 1 year. There are some options to do partial deployment throughout the district. It's not quite reducing it in direct halves or quarters, but there are some options where we could roll out over the course of 2 years. The second major project is the telephone system. This has been on discussion since before I even joined the technology department. We looked at a couple of different options, and this came up during the board presentation for technology last year of hosted versus an on-premise system. Mr. DeAndrea and I met with several companies. Mr. Makeley met with me as well. He's our on-site technician for phone systems. And we came up with two options. The first option is an on-site, on-premise system. It will be about $400,000 to put that system in across district-wide. The advantage to that is that we'll own that system and it has an estimated 15-year lifespan. So that's a one-time investment for that 15-year span. The alternative option is a $140,000 annual plan for a hosted system. The advantages of a hosted system being that the district has no responsibility for maintenance at that point. Part of the system is that the hosting company will maintain it from the outside straight down to the individual phones within the district. So we have two potential options there. We would pay for the on-site system with the annual costs in about a little under 3 years, if my math is correct. So there are some incentives to having a system that we own on-site with the idea that in about 15 years it would be due for replacement again. This is a timely item at the moment. The Samsel School has been going down periodically throughout the year again, and right now at the middle school, while the phone system is up, we're missing a critical component. The system that controls the voicemails and the auto redirect. So when you dial in, you get that automated voice prompt. That system, known as a call pilot, has failed in the middle school, and we're having an extremely difficult time finding a replacement because those parts have been made in the better part of 10 to 15 years. Our current internet provider approached us with a very good option for providing a secondary loop around the district for an internet connection. This would offset some bandwidth issues, although we're not in any bandwidth crunch. We had upgraded last year. It also provides a second tunnel so that if anything happens out on the street level that breaks a connection between this building and another building, there's a second pathway to move through. Network security upgrades in this day and age of hacks and colleges and high schools around the country getting shut down during testing and during grading periods. We had looked into some options for upgrading our network security. Network switches are in direct response to upgrade of cameras in the district. Mr. Pantaleano has installed several camera systems during the course of this year, and I know he was looking to do more next year. In order to support those camera systems, they're more modern than the ones in this building. They all require being connected to our internet backbone, which requires that they have ports available in the buildings. So if we are going to continue to expand cameras, we do need to order a couple of network switches to support that. And then end user devices were predominantly requests from the building principals and supervisors. A number of principals had requested additional devices. I know I spoke to the curriculum committee about this a few weeks ago. We've invested a great deal in student and staff devices over the years, and while the Chromebooks have provided us a great method of a sustainable product within the district, every one of them, as I walk around the buildings, and every one of them as we pull our audits, are being utilized on almost a daily basis. So the principals and the supervisors are requesting that even though we have a substantial near 2-to-1 device ratio at this point, they're using them. So they are requesting that they have more to utilize throughout the classrooms. This is the major projects within this budget, major new projects, and are most of what is driving the increased cost. Other smaller projects within the budget that are new, that are things that have not previously shown out, which sum at about $340,000, a little under $340,000. A student analytics system. Dr. Shediak and a team of supervisors and I have looked into this. This is a data warehouse and analysis system for our students to analyze the assessments and the state, both local, state, federal assessments that we engage in. Dr. Shediak, I don't know if there was anything else, or we'll save it if anyone has questions on that one. Substitute HR interface modules and HR Extended. These are two expansions that Ms. Reese and I have discussed to our current personnel system to enhance its capabilities. I know this was proposed last year, an increase to our PowerSchool system, the healthcare software. It gives our nurses some enhanced abilities within PowerSchool. An HIV management software. Offsite data backup and domain controllers are two things that I proposed. These give us a greater level of uptime throughout the district, as well as making sure that our data is safe and secure unless something happens to our core servers. We have a series of management systems. Each one of these does something different within the district, but we've onboarded quite an array of different programs and devices over the last couple of years. And what we're finding is that we currently don't have the back-end architecture to manage all of these in a regulated fashion. For instance, pushing out apps to an iPad or updating Chromebooks or tracking where they are. Many companies, when these technologies were new, offered these products for free. And as the years have gone on, fewer and fewer have offered them as a free service. And it's come to the point where we can't push out applications automatically to iPads. We have to send someone to each and every iPad to update them. So certainly time consuming on a man-hour's part that could be redistributed elsewhere. Pull print service has been a request from the teaching staff for a number of years. It allows for you to send to a central print server and you can go pick it up from any copier within the building. Instead of sending it to copier A is broken, you have to go back, send it again. Conversion of old PCs to Chromebooks was something we piloted this year and was a huge success so far. Laptops and netbooks that were closeted, that were unusable at this point, too slow. There was a relatively inexpensive program that we loaded on that made them into Chromebooks and made them usable, viable devices that we could redeploy out as Chrome devices. Following that pilot, we calculated the remaining devices that we have in the district and what it would cost to upgrade them. Single sign-on service is a request at our lower grade levels so that our younger students don't have to remember as many passwords. Dr. Labby had requested that we move the guidance department from desktops to laptops next year. Differentiated instruction system, Dr. Shadyac, that was achieved 3,000. That was what we were looking at. So if there's any questions to that, I'll defer to you. ELL software was requested by some of our teachers. We had looked at a couple of variations there. The leading one, I believe, was a Brain Pop program. Digital photography, there was a request for some new equipment there. Dr. Labby had requested some assistive technology funds. Professional development department had requested a website service. And the remaining items here are just general service and maintenance items that we did not have in previous budget allocations. Basic upgrades, parts, components, and things of that nature that we had not previously seen. Anyone have any questions?
I have two questions. First of all, with the virtual desktops that you want, have you looked into one of two things? First of all, have you looked into a lease purchase program for these? And have you had any results?
The virtual desktops are, there's two components to it, a hardware back-end infrastructure, which we could do a lease purchase program. I would defer to Mr. D'Andrea as to what our options are. I know we've discussed it. There are some options there. The other part of it is a licensing cost, which is a straight-out purchase based on number of users.
How many units are you looking at for this proposal?
The initial run was about 800.
About 800. The second question I have, and you know, it's the budget's tight. Let's be realistic,
Absolutely.
okay? Have you looked at, or do we have anyone that can sit and write for grants, such as maybe going to Google, or to Intel, or to Dell, or going to IBM, or any of the big suppliers, Apple? I mean, anybody. Have we had any opportunity to sit down and fill out paperwork for grants that would take some of the burden of finance away from the district?
It's been done in the past. Prior to my joining the technology department, that's where the bulk of our Chromebooks came from. It's an option that Dr. Labby and Dr. Shadyac have talked to me, and something that we're exploring. It is certainly an option. There are certainly grants out there. Do I know any specific ones that deal with virtual desktops? I haven't seen, but as far as physical devices for students and staff, yes, there are grants out there.
Well, the reason I ask, with any of the new issues that you are, or components that you want for the technology department, I mean, there has to be some way or some company that would love to get their hands into this district, you know, and put their product in here and get rave reviews for it.
And the one big one that was there was the conversion of PCs to Chromebooks. That was a company called Cloud Ready, based out of New York. I had met with them almost a full year ago at this point, and they were one company that gave us a good deal of what we were doing at this point as demo units and items for us to trial out and to experience. And they had recently just approached Mr. Makeley and myself to write up basically a usage summary, how we are using it, how it's benefited the district, and why we're looking to pursue it. And they turned around and have engaged Samsung, which is our current Chromebook manufacturer. So that's one avenue that we're looking at this year already. But yes, there are a substantial amount of grants out there, and definitely things that we are pursuing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Sack?
Just one question. When we look at the security portion of the budget, do we have in district, either through technology or Dr. Labby, maybe at a higher level, any type of risk committee or risk process where we look at what our potential risks are, weight them, and look at, data breaches, phishing, social hacking, et cetera? Do we have a committee that looks at that?
From an internal technology perspective, that's something my department does. We analyze that. From a more global building perspective, I believe, Ms. Reese,
Yeah, we have our Health and Safety Committee that is responsible for the development of our entire emergency management plan, which includes any type of cyber attack and so forth. One thing that Mr. Glock-Malloy didn't mention, something that we already have, we have a number of different things, not only to protect our data, but also to monitor social media for potential threats against the district. We actually have a software that will monitor for us what is being said on social media, and will give us alerts as to if someone is on social media, on Facebook or on Twitter, making some kind of threat toward the district. We'll get that so that we can immediately report that to the authorities.
Okay. And I know, Mr. Sayak, last year at this time, you had asked about data backup and integrity of our systems here. This year, with our current budget, we made huge strides to that. All of our critical systems at this point not only back up on-site and off-site, but also have an emergent failover. So if something happens at the high school, we can spin up all of our critical systems at a remote location. The one item here for off-site data backup was a small off-site server just to handle our non-critical data, pure storage. But we made huge strides in that this year.
So you feel we're ready?
Yes, at this point. Last year I couldn't tell you that. At this point, I'm comfortable all our critical data is secured and backed up and accessible. Our less critical data is certainly backed up, but it is only backed up on-site. So that is the one extension that would have a full backup everywhere of our data systems.
I feel a lot better than I did last year. Thank you.
Anybody from the public have any questions about Mr. Glockenmoy's presentation? Seeing none, Dr. Labby? Okay, on the correspondence, the monthly work order and maintenance reports, if anybody does have any questions on those, we'll look at the minutes. The minutes of December 15th and January 5th meetings have been posted. Anybody have any comments, questions, deletions, additions of the minutes? If not, I'll accept the motion to accept and file the minutes.
So moved.
You need a second.
Second.
Get a roll call vote to accept and approve the minutes.
Mr. Balcom?
Yes.
Mrs. Backo?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Sayak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
And Mr. McEnroe?
Just make a note that Mr. Esposito and Mr. Bashada would be voting for the January 5th because they were not on the board December 15 minutes.
Correct. I'm glad they should really, I'm going to indicate for the notes that they're
Right.
abstaining on the,
Right, December 15th.
yep.
Okay. Your report.
Thank you, Mr. McEnroe. Before I begin, is anybody else warm too?
Yeah. It's warm.
Maybe we can correct that next time, Mr. DeAndrea, lowering the heat a little bit. If I can direct your attention now to the superintendent's report highlights on Vision 2030, finance and infrastructure. Numbers 13 and 14, which can be found on page 3, we're asking you to approve the auditor's annual report, and that consists of the comprehensive annual fiscal report for 2014-15, as well as the auditor's management report. Number 15, probably the longest resolution I've ever read. I contacted the Guinness people. They're coming out tomorrow to take a look at it, measure it, to see if it is, in fact, the longest resolution ever. Nonetheless, you can find it on pages 3 to 11. Read it at your leisure, just not before bed, or not while driving any type of large machinery. That is on the refunding of our school bonds, by the way. Numbers 16 and 17 can be found on pages 11 and 12. We're asking you to approve of the submission of an amended application for funding under the No Child Left Behind Act in the total amount of $751,529, as well as number 17, the amended salary grant offsets. What normally occurs about this time, after Dr. Shediak does her final report for the NCLB grant, and soon I'll be able to do the same with the IDEA grant. We go ahead and do that final report, and then we get what's called carryover, money that was not spent previously, so we have to amend that grant to include the carryover funds. As I said, you can expect within the next couple of meetings for us to amend the IDEA grant so you can include the carryover from what was not expended the previous year. Number 18, which can be found on page 12, we're asking you to approve change order number 2, and that's with Integrity Roofing Incorporated. Numbers 19 and 20, which can be found on page 12. We have 2 tuition contracts that we're asking you to approve. One of them is due to the Educational Sustainability Act, which basically says that if a child in Sayreville, unfortunately, goes into foster care and is being educated in another school district, we are the district of residence, which means we are responsible for paying for that child's education in that other school district. Similarly, with the McKinney-Vento Act, if a child is considered homeless and they go to another district, they are sheltered in another district, again, we have to take fiscal responsibility for their education. These are two situations where we do have a foster child in another district, and we do have a homeless child in another district, so therefore, we're asking you to approve those tuition contracts. Number 21, we're asking you to approve a resolution for Delta T Group. It's an agency that provides substitute nursing services for us. That can be found on pages 12 and 13. We have been having difficulty finding substitute nurses, and this service will help us out greatly. Numbers 23 and 24, we're asking you to approve some obsolete technology as well as an obsolete wrestling mat from the middle school. You can find that on page 14. Number 32, which can be found on page 15. We're asking you to approve the use of a Board of Education bus. This is the time of year that our Tomorrow's Teachers students begin to do their classroom observations, so they'll be going out to our classrooms to observe teachers. And in this particular case, we're asking you to approve a bus to take them to the Samsel Upper Elementary School on several different occasions. Number 33, on page 15, we're asking you to approve several student trips with transportation costs. Number 34, we do have 2 students that are being educated right now in private out-of-district schools. We're asking you to pay for those tuitions, and we do have a couple of bedside tutoring contracts that we're asking you to approve as well. Someone asked me this prior to the meeting. I went ahead and did an audit of our students out of district. We currently have 78 students being educated out of district, which is down from about 88 at this time last year. Number 35, which can be found on the addendum, we're asking you to approve a fine young man, Zachary Blend. We're asking you to approve his Eagle Scout candidate project, and that is to install a natural play area at the Truman Elementary School. I cannot thank Mr. Byrne and the staff from the Truman School for giving this fine young man the opportunity to earn his Eagle Scout badge, which is a huge endeavor if you are familiar with Boy Scouts and what is required as an Eagle Scout. So we can't thank them enough for giving him this great opportunity. And again, that's number 35, and it's on the addendum. Any questions about anything on Vision 2030 finance and infrastructure?
Dr. Labby, I have a question about when we allow use of the buildings with the fees, such as with this Black Belt Academy, do they provide proof of insurance in case a student is injured during one of their...
Yes, they do. And I think it's up to $1 million, correct?
I believe that's the number.
Yeah, $1 million in liability insurance. They have to provide us with a certificate of that.
Thank you.
I'm going to abstain on number 8 on page 3.
Already got it.
Mr. Syak?
Dr. Labby, 33D on the field trips with
Yes.
regard to FBLA.
Yes.
Look strikingly similar but slightly different than the 3 on the addendum. They're both approving the same trip, but
Yes.
they both have different pieces of information. Maybe while you're continuing, Mr. DeAndrea can try to combine them into one motion so we can approve them?
Well, there's also an additional one in student achievement,
Yours is the.
and that's the actual cost for the fees.
Oh, so the fees are under student achievement, the transportation
Yes,
is
this is for
under...
the transportation costs.
I got it, that's why
If
it's
you
the same
look in
trip.
student
Okay.
achievement, you'll find that on the addendum, that student achievement, that's paying for the entry fees for the children.
Got it. All right, thank
The
you.
others are for the transportation costs. Good question.
That's why it's separated. Okay.
Yep. Any other questions? Moving along, Vision 2030 student achievement. Number 1, we're asking you to approve the Winter Festival at the Arleth Elementary School, and that's on February 11th. Find that on page 16. Numbers 2 and 3, and again, this is in reference to Mr. Sayak's question. We're asking to approve co-curricular trips with transportation costs And this is basically the fees involved in that, and that's where you can find the fees for our students from the Future Business Leaders of America to attend that conference in Atlantic City. Any questions on Vision 2030 student achievement? Okay, moving along to personnel. We do not have any items for you to approve in governance, so we'll go right to personnel. And it's my pleasure, as well as my sorrow, so to speak, to announce that we do have some beloved staff members that will be leaving us. We are certainly happy for them, and we congratulate them on their retirements, but they are all going to be very sorely missed. Beginning with Sandra McEnany. Today, the Sayreville Board of Education would like to recognize the retirement of Mrs. Sandra McEnany. Sandy has decided to retire after 31 years in education, 18 of which were in Sayreville. Mrs. McEnany has been a language arts teacher at the middle school since it was called the Sayreville Junior High School. Sandy has touched the lives of all of her students and all of our staff that she worked with during her time here, and we are sad to see her go. However, we know she is looking forward to spending more time with her family and friends. Congratulations, Sandy. We'd also like to congratulate Mrs. Alice Patensky. Alice has worked in Project Before Preschool for the past 11 years. Prior to that, she worked for the Commission of the Blind. During her time with the Commission, she was often called to work with some of our preschoolers in Project Before. She realized then her passion was to work with young children and became a part of the Sayreville Public Schools, especially the Sayreville preschool family. Mrs. Patensky is a very passionate person, particularly about teaching, and spends many hours preparing and planning so her students can succeed and achieve their goals that she sets for them. She has been a wonderful asset to the preschool program and will be missed by all staff and students. On a personal note, I just need to say that having had the opportunity as the Director of Special Services to work with Mrs. Patensky for the past 2 years, I am going to greatly miss her. She's an amazing person. She's an inspiring educator. And the work that she does with those preschoolers is nothing less than remarkable. I'm surely going to miss her. And one of the things that she does is she facilitates and organizes our preschool carnival at the end of the school year. And gosh, I don't know who's going to be able to take over that endeavor because she's done it so perfectly for so many years. So I personally would like to congratulate and wish Mrs. Patensky all the best in her retirement. Mrs. Deborah Shedlock. Mrs. Shedlock started in the district in 1990 as a bus driver and served in that capacity until 1999. In 2000, she took on the tedious and, believe me, very difficult position of Director of Transportation. Debbie has always been a reliable contact person, not only for the district, but for the Sayreville community. She has been contacted by the borough for community disasters to provide shelter and transportation for community members as well as public safety personnel. She is always willing to be there to help with any transportation issue. Debbie has been a major asset to the district, and we will surely miss her. Again, on a personal level, I've actually known Debbie for quite some time, and not really knowing it until I came back to Sayreville. I had the pleasure and the honor of teaching Debbie's daughter in Ms. Guskowski's 4th grade class back in 1993 when I was a student teacher. And at that time, she was one of the parents that I worked with. And knowing Debbie, she probably gave me a real hard time in that capacity. But also, having had the honor and privilege to work with Debbie for the past 2 years, I know how truly terrific she is at her job, how much she truly cares. While you may not see that all the time, she is deeply passionate about this community and about this school district, and most importantly, about the students that she has served so well for so many years. So again, we congratulate and we wish Mrs. Shedlock the best. We do have one more person, but I think it would be most fitting that my good friend, Mr. DeAndrea, read that.
Isabel, who I refer to, but most people in the district know her as Joe. Mrs. Hospital started in Sayreville in 1986 as a 10-month secretary. In 1994, she was promoted to the position of confidential secretary in the superintendent's office and served in the capacity until she was appointed confidential secretary to the business administrator myself. Isabel has always been a committed and dedicated secretary who continually gives her best effort at every task she takes on. She is a well-organized and hard-working individual who will surely be missed in the business office and by me personally on a daily basis.
Dr. Labby, I'd just like to add, Mrs. Hospodor, as board members, I think we work with her the most of employees because she works in the board secretary office, and always found Joe to be what I would call a consummate professional, always very efficient. And I remember times of me calling her, to get something, and she said, "Won't you check your mailbox?" Because I sent that out already. Whether it's updated board information, whether it's registration. So it was just a pleasure working with her because I know if you called her, number one, she had the answer and she was going to provide you what you needed. And as far as Debbie, if you know Debbie, she's very pulls no punches, but she certainly knows the transportation. And I think my respect for Debbie was solidified during Hurricane Sandy and what she did as far as the bus transportation and working with the borough, transporting people that were flooded out and going into ground zero that night, I think is a testament. And anytime there's something in town, she was always there available to provide the transportation that's necessary. So just wanted to add that comment.
Mr. McEnroe?
Sure.
I'd also like to add some personal congratulations to all the retirees, but specifically to those two individuals who I've worked with for a long time as a member of the board. Joe Hospodor, absolutely dedicated. I mean, she cut her teeth under Marie Parnell, and she learned everything about how to be an administrative assistant under Marie Parnell, and she still executes that way to this day. A lady of absolute class and a lady of absolute loyalty. Anything that was told to her in confidence will go to the grave with her because you could always trust her to keep the confidence of this district and of the board. And I really appreciate her loyalty to us, just a classy lady, and her dedication. And finally, also to Debbie Shedlock. Debbie, I remember as a bus driver. Mr. McEnroe, you're absolutely right. Anyone who knows Mrs. Shedlock knows that she speaks her mind. But at the same time, from a transportation coordinator perspective, our efficiency rating was always high. We got children to where they needed to be. We got them there safely. We got them home safely. And she coordinated a large part of that. Ironically, the only major challenge that she ever presented to us in terms of a logistical issue was back probably about 15 years ago when the night of the senior prom, half the buses did not show up. And ironically, it was her daughter's senior prom. But she fixed that as well. Just, again, a great lady, and we're really thankful for her service to the district.
And one last thing to mention for me personally on Mrs. Hospodor. She's probably has the most infectious smile of anyone I've ever met, and this unspeakable calming presence, one that I have benefited greatly from over the past couple of years, including today. Her ability to calm you down is something remarkable. So I too, Mr. DeAndrea, are going to share in your sorrow in missing Mrs. Hospodor. But we do wish her and all of our employees that are retiring the very best. So thank you. Moving ahead, items number 5 and 6, which can be found on page 18. We do have some resignations that we're asking you to accept. One is a middle school field hockey coach. Another is a language arts teacher at the high school. Number 7, which can be found on pages 18 and 19, we have several leaves of absence. that we have either revised or added to that list that we need you to approve. That can be found on pages 18 and 19. Number 8, which can be found on pages 19 and 20, we're asking you to hire 5 certified replacement teachers. Number 9, which can be found on page 20, we're asking you to approve 4 non-certified staff members. Numbers 10 and 12, which can be found on pages 20 and 21, we're asking you to approve our Sayreville War Memorial High School spring musical stage production costume designer, as well as the head spring girls track coach. I apologize for my spelling of track. Numbers 13, 14, and 18, which can be found on page 21 in the addendum. We're asking you to approve 10 certified and 3 non-certified substitutes. Numbers 15 and 16, which can be found on page 22. We're asking you to approve 3 teachers in our adult immigrant English as a second language program, as well as 2 teachers in our new literacy academy. Number 17, we're asking you to approve professional days on page 22 and 24 through 24. And finally, Board of Education members, we do have, is it number 19? Did I mess my
Number 19.
number? Number 19, we have
18 on the addendum and then 19.
we have 18 on the addendum, which, I mentioned earlier, which was a part of our substitutes. So we do have a number 19 that's not on the addendum, nor is it on the agenda. So we're asking you Number 19, the Sayreville Board of Education hereby denies Sayreville Education Association grievance number 2015-71. That will be number 19 on the addendum. Any questions on Vision 2030 personnel?
I'm going to abstain on number 19.
Medio, I need to abstain as well.
Thank you.
Any board discussion on the agenda items before I open up for the public? Seeing none, at this time, I'd like to open up the public for any questions or comments on agenda items only. I will open up again for the public for any business may come before this board. Anybody have any questions or comments on the agenda items? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion, and I'll accept the motion to accept and file the superintendent's report. I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
I need a roll call vote.
Mr. Bacco.
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco.
Yes.
Mr. Bashada.
Yes, but I'll be voting no on page 23 to the Transportation Supervisor New Jersey Conference. And the reason is this person is retiring July 1st, and I think the $395 can be used elsewhere to the budget in Sayreville.
Yes to all others? Mr. Bashada, yes to all others?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes, except where noted.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McEnroe?
Yes. On the committee reports, finance infrastructure, anything?
We had a brief meeting. We met with the auditors. We went over the audit report. Then we spoke about the bond refunding coming up with the auditors and how that's going to run. Then we also looked at capital reserve account, which we have $283,864 in the capital reserve account, which we can't do many projects with it, but we'll try to get the best we can out of that money. And the only other major thing we spoke about was the solar projects for the roofs. Emilio was saying that he basically had 2 salespeople coming in saying that we could save between $135,000 and $205,000.
Say it again, how much?
$135,000 to $205,000 if we put solar panels on, but
All the roofs?
I'm not sure if they're all the roofs or a large percentage of the roofs, but
If
the
you
concern was it's a salesperson, and he doesn't really know if those numbers are true or false, and he's looking for guidance if he can hire a.
Well, we've been down that road before. Didn't we have a survey of all our rooftops and solar?
That was done when, with the Cara Rubino when they were
Right.
here 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
But this is doing a power purchase agreement. This isn't us owning them, so neither Dennis or I have the expertise to say what the real savings are. So I'm looking for an engineer that can maybe at least look at the plans that they're designed and look at the bills and say, the numbers are reasonable, but the design was all buildings.
All the buildings.
Yes, and we would have to adjust that, because at this point in time, Salover does not have a new roof.
Right.
So
Is there an upfront cost for a power purchase agreement?
a power purchase agreement is totally no
No upfront
upfront
cost.
cost. You just have to agree to a 20-year lease, where they get to put their panels on your roof, and you benefit from the cost savings, the differential between what you would pay the utility company and what you would pay them for the production of solar panel.
And the other concern was, I guess, the warranties on the roofs too, since we have new roofs, there's a concern about the
Putting holes in them.
putting holes. I don't know, if some of the early, from the first project, they had basically, they were just freestanding on the roofs with weights on them, keeping them on, but I don't know if that's the system they're gonna do, or there's more research needs to be
The way
done.
solar panels are now put on roofs, and again, different types of roofs require different kind of mechanisms, so, and that would all be done during your bid specification process, because you have to include the manufacturers of each of your roofs to make sure that they warranty them once they're up there. So there's a lot involved.
That's all.
Okay.
Mr. McEnroe, can I
yes.
add to that? The other piece that came up from the auditor was the school climate fund, which we had discussed last year, the excess money from student accounts that we had decided should be used to the benefit of all students. I had asked Emilio at the time if he knew if any of that had been actually spent, and do you have?
I received that. When I received it, I looked it over. I have a question on one of the expenditures, so until I have an answer to one of the expenditures, then I'm going to be forwarding it to the committee.
Okay. My question here was, when the board agreed to this or approved this, I don't know if anybody had the realization that we were not going to get to see this back, like what exactly. Mr. Brown gave us an outline, but this doesn't require board approval. I would think that with this amount of money, we would want to have a board approval, so I'd like to make a motion.
Well, this is excess student activities funds?
Yeah, but
Yes.
it totals $83,000.
And how was it done in the past? It was just.
Well,
it was
this is
spent.
just set up, and that's why
Okay.
the accountant questioned it, because he said, it's still there, so what is being done with it? You know, are you gonna do scholarships? And of course, we had all said no, because we wanted it to be something that would benefit all of the students, not just certain students. But I think with this amount of money, even though Mr. Brown has given us a breakdown, that the board should see what the expenditure is gonna be and approve it before it
So
occurs.
he gave you a breakdown of what he wanted to do with the 83,000?
There's a letter that Emilio forwarded.
He only prepared the budget as to what he estimates the expenditures are going to be. I think what Mrs. Bloom is saying is, since that has been put in place, Mr. Brown, with the advisor and a student advisor, have signed off for expenditures that have occurred.
Okay, it's just a recommendation of the finance committee?
We kind of generally discussed that we thought it would be a good idea if the board gave approval.
Well, is the finance committee recommending that to us, is what I'm asking?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody object?
What I'll do then for the board is, let me speak to Mr. Brown and inform him that any expenditures that go through that would have to come to me for board approval prior to the expenditure going out.
Okay.
Because right now, he has a process in place. Once it's approved by him, the treasurer, and the student advisor, I'll inform him that it has to be forwarded to my attention, and I'll include it on the agenda item for approval.
Thank you.
And it's
If I could
just
just
this
ask-
80,000, we don't want to approve the ski
No,
club, yeah, okay.
Just
But I
clearly-
thought we had discussed that we were going to talk about a format and a way to use the money, and the auditor had said he would draw it up for us in going forward, how we would use the money and how we would.
I think that
the
was if
expenditure.
we were doing scholarships. that
Oh,
we
but
would-
since we're not doing scholarships, then we don't need
No.
to do that.
Yeah, his concern was if this was being set up as a scholarship, we have an actual separate scholarship fund, if that's what
Okay.
you're referring to. And so he said if we were using it for scholarship, we should draw the money into our scholarship fund. That way it follows those protocols. But since there really isn't a scholarship in this, he said it's fine at that point.
So if we go forward with the board approval, is it going to be like a bill list type of thing? Is that what we would do?
No, what you'll probably see is a separate agenda item for the board to approve any expenditures out of the school climate. I mean,
What he's done is he broke it down into 3 categories. I have the copy of the
Yes.
letter that Emilio forwarded to me: professional speakers, student recognition, and school spirit activities. So he would then, define exactly what he's going to do in each of those categories.
Do we required to zero that out every year versus just rolling over to
This
next
is
year?
a one-shot
This
deal.
is-
This is just
It's accumulated
money
over the
that's
years.
developed. It's money that has accumulated over the years in the Student Activities Fund that have been set aside. So I'll inform Mr. Brown that all expenditures have to come this way.
Okay, anything else, finance?
The Finance Committee want to create some sort of threshold? We don't want to approve a $102 item, right? Do we want to give him some discretionary spending?
Well, what
Or
he's
do we wanna
listed
keep it?
here, professional speakers, in parentheses, $5,000, student recognition, $500, school spirit activities, $3,000. So I'm assuming he's going to stay within those parameters, so it's not going to be nickels and dimes.
Gotcha.
My fellow board members, could you please speak into the mic? Because, Mr. Esposito, I didn't hear what you said.
You want me to repeat it, or?
Would you please?
Okay, yeah. What I was concerned about was us approving items for quote-unquote petty cash, like $100 here, $50 here, and then Ms. Bloom explained that he created some sort of, outline, right, thank you. Speakers, $5,000. So he gave us an outline of how he would spend that $83,000. I just didn't want to waste our time approving $200, $300 items to get to zero out this $83,000, that's all.
agree.
Thank you.
Okay.
Emilio, is that outlined yearly? Is that a yearly way he plans on
That's-
spending it?
That's what he was looking at, is a yearly.
So
thing.
if he's looking at doing that yearly, can't we just approve that outline and not be bothered with the details?
Well-
Wouldn't that be good enough?
I think the board has basically already done that at one point when I sent it to you to,
So that's
Set
what
up
we
the account.
approved, that specific outline.
that was what he presented to you, and no one had any objections to that outline. Now it's a matter of the expenditure, which Mrs. Bloom is questioning as to bringing that authority back to the board before the expenditure goes out, basically like your bill list.
So if he wants 3,000, the guideline for speakers, then we're going to approve which speaker? Is that
Yes,
what we're
that's what
looking at?
each expenditure you're now going to approve. That's what you basically agreed to, yes.
Do we do that for other principals? And do we do that when other people?
Well, this is
Well-
an extraordinary fund. This doesn't exist anywhere else, so.
Right, but we already have a guideline for a yearly amount. It's not an exorbitant amount of money.
But what you just mentioned doesn't add up to $83,000.
No, because
No,
it's
this
a
is
year.
for 1 year.
One
He's
year.
And
looking
it's
at,
gonna roll it out.
and then next year, he may change his mind and decide he wants to put more on
And
that line.
I just want to make sure when he established it, he established the budget that he believed he was going to work with. And I cannot tell you that if he says 5,000 for one category, he may only spend 4 in that, and he may spend 4 in another that may exceed one or the other. I mean, I think his goal was to give you some type of guideline. I'm not going to speak for Mr. Brown, but normally when people develop budgets, it's just to give you an idea, and they transfer money back and forth. But if you want me to relay that message, that he has to stay within those guidelines, I will relay that.
No, I think you could leave that flexible, but I still think that we would like to see exactly where the money is going. Where
I'll
he
have
has
it-
school
I'll make sure
spirit
he's
and it
aware.
says banners, T-shirts, and miscellaneous, that's vague. To me, that's vague.
I'll make sure that it be presented to the board.
Okay. All right, student achievement, we have anything, we haven't had a meeting, right? Next meeting is the 27th?
2 weeks. No, next week.
next
Oh,
week.
Next week
Next,
already.
next Tuesday, okay. Policy, anything?
Nothing to report.
Personnel.
Nothing to report this time.
Okay, delegate to New Jersey School Board Association.
I need board direction on one item, because I need to know if I should draft a resolution for board approval. And I'll give some background to the public so that they know what we're talking about. I think the board pretty much knows what we're under. All boards of education in the state have a school ethics commission that that basically adjudicates our behavior and that we can go to for advice in the event we're not sure if voting on something would be a conflict of interest. And that process has worked well for roughly 20 years. They would always give you basically good advice in terms of, well, sometimes, yes, you can do this, or other times, no, you can't do this. And they generally stayed consistent with regard to their opinions. In the last year or two, they've gone so far from a conservative standpoint that it's beginning to, A, handicap boards of education, B, they've even put in prohibitions on volunteering, board members volunteering in the district. And it's created an environment almost where if you have to ask the question, the answer is no. And what that creates from a legal standpoint is if you conflict the majority of us for less than significant reasons, then the board has to invoke what's known as the doctrine of necessity, which means since there's a majority conflicted, everybody can vote on the item, which kind of defeats the purpose because now those of us who may be most conflicted on an item because we may have a son or daughter or someone directly employed by the district, now all of a sudden can vote because one person has a conflict that is significantly less significant, for lack of a better way to say it. So there has been legislation introduced that will do three things. First of all, it will clarify that board members are allowed to volunteer in districts. Second of all, it will remove the word others from the School Ethics Act, thereby limiting any type of conflict to members of our immediate family. And it will also clarify that if you have a member of your immediate family who is a member of the NJEA in a different school district, that does not preclude you from voting on a teacher's contract or dealing with anything NJEA related in this school district. So my question to the board is, would we support legislation like that? And should I prepare a resolution that we can adopt once it's reintroduced in a new legislative session?
I'm okay with it.
I agree.
Support it.
Me too.
Okay.
All right. Any questions about that? Okay, next item. I had opened up the meeting saying that I was going to make some comments about an issue that recently came to our attention that deals with health benefits. As you know, a couple of meetings ago, I would say probably more than a couple meetings ago, a couple of months ago, I established a health benefits committee of the board, an ad hoc committee, something that was never done in the past. And the reason I did that was because of the health care, the way it's administered, and the fact that we were going to see a significant increase, and we wanted to understand all the peculiarities that go around health benefits. So on that committee was myself, was Mrs. DePinto, and we're a negotiating committee, and Mrs. Bacco, who brought this to our attention to be a good idea to have this committee, and as a member of the Finance Committee, it made sense that us three would do this. So we held a meeting on Thursday, I think that was January 14th, and we invited all our unions, leadership. There was members there representing the NGA, our administrators, and our healthcare broker. During the course of that meeting, the broker had outlined the benefits of the three plans that are available to our employees in the district. And one of the benefits that he mentioned was a medical plan RX copay reimbursement of 90%. Which is not a benefit you're going to see in many health plans because it's considered a generous benefit. The current plans that we have are health care, as far as RX, there's a $15 copay for generic, which means if you got a 90% reimbursement in that, you would get $13.50 of that $15 back. If it's a brand drug, it's a $25 cost, then you would get 90% of that back, which would be $22.50. So if you have a need for frequent prescriptions, or you have children, and we all know that need medication, this is a significant amount of money that you could be reimbursed. And it's significant because the cost of health care is significant, and our district, in our union, is paying a pretty high premium for health benefits, and our district has been paying for health benefits long before the state decided that districts should pay for health benefits. When this was briefed, everybody in that room, particularly our union members who have these plans, were unaware of this benefit. And this is a generous benefit. And this benefit, if you use RX, is a significant reduction in your premiums and the reimbursements that you would receive. When that information was made available, Mr. Veers, our union president, was there, and he was livid, and rightly so. And there was somebody else in that room who was just as livid as him, and that was me. I went from being amazed to confused to angry that this was a benefit that we, the board, is paying. Our health benefit cost is about $11 million. Our employees contribute about 1.9 million, but the majority of the employee contribution is by the SEA at about 1.6 million. And then the most generous benefit of that plan, I could not find in any of the literature from the healthcare company that provides literature to our members. During the meeting, we went on a website to try to find out if that was on their website, and it was not. During the meeting, Mr. Veers turned around to me and he said, "Who's responsible for this? Who owns this?" I own it, and I made that very clear. Dr. Labby, in an email that he sent out this weekend, is also taking responsibility for this. So what does that mean that I own it? Is this just words that I'm saying? Anybody that knows me knows that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And the next morning, on that Friday, we started our investigation. And our investigation has 3 objectives. Number 1, how could a generous benefit like this not be in any of the literature? And how could the vast majority of our employees not know about it? Number 2, our objective is who particularly is responsible for this and will hold accountable who failed to live up to that responsibility. And thirdly, and most importantly, is to make sure that our employees are brought back whole financially. So as I speak, our healthcare broker has already contacted Aetna, who has agreed to reimburse at 90% all RX copays from the time that they've been providing the health benefit in our district. We've also asked our broker to go back beyond Aetna until Oxford and get that same benefit. Dr. Labby is conducting an investigation, and we've been working through this the whole weekend, and I assured him that any and all resources he needs to investigate this and find out exactly what happened, the board will provide him. Now, some may think that this is going to be a protracted, long investigation. It won't be. Because everybody that sits on this table knows that I don't have patience for nonsense like this. This is something that I have a mission now. This is going to be 100% of my focus is going to be resolving this to the benefit of our employees. Now, Mr. Veers and I, this gentleman sitting right here, the head of the union, at times we have bumped heads. And it's not because of our differences, it's because I believe of our similarities. We're both passionate, we're both tenacious, and we both want to do right by the people in our charge. And I guaranteed him that day, and I'll guarantee him now at this meeting, that I am working 100% with you on this to resolve this to the benefit of your union. I feel both professionally and personally embarrassed by this, and I feel responsible that we owe it in my position in this board to fix this problem. You know, this leadership thing sometimes, you know, it's pretty funny. Leadership makes us accountable for the actions of those beneath us, and also demands that when a wrong is brought to our attention, that we make it right. And I sit here before you tonight to tell you that I'm going to make this right. Absolutely, 100%. And if there's any news here, it's the news that Mr. Veers and I are in agreement, and we're going to work on this for the collective, to the benefit of our employees. Because this, to me, I'm still besides myself, and how this could not be a benefit that's advertised. I have my suspicions, but I'm not going to jump to any conclusions until this is thoroughly investigated. And while it's being investigated, we will go where the evidence leads us. And if that evidence requires us to take disciplinary action, we will do that in order to make this right. So I just wanted to share that to let you know the incident that we've been notified of. So please don't judge me personally on what I should have known, but I'll allow you to judge me on what I do about something when I find out that it's 100% wrong and needs to be fixed. And it's my pledge that this is my mission now. 100% of my attention is going to be focused on resolving this in the most expedient manner possible. So I just wanted to share that with you this evening. If there's no any other, well, I have one other thing I wanted to just talk about, just update, and then I'll open it up for the public for any comment on what I said or anything that may come before this board. As you know, we have a pilot committee, and we've been working with the Borough Council to try to come up with a solution to the district losing prospective tax dollars on a pilot option. We did go to the Borough Council meeting, and we did have some more discussion, and I'd say that it was good discussion. And a vote was taken in order, it was a philosophical vote because the jury's still out on exactly how much money the pilot would generate. Just a philosophical discussion about if there is any surplus, the board would like to get the 56% of that surplus, the same amount that we would get on any property in town that is traditionally taxed. And the Borough Council shot it down. I don't remember exactly what the votes were. I think there were 2 votes in support, and there were some abstentions due to conflicts. But we will continue to pursue this as development continues in town to make sure that the Board of Ed receives the tax dollars necessary to continue our operation. So having said that, if there's no other discussion, I'd like to open up
Mr.
the public.
McEnone?
Yes, Mr.
Mr. Sayak, being the New Jersey representative for the Board of Education here in Sayreville, I would ask you to bring a resolution or present a resolution in your next meeting about that residential pilots are detrimental to the education of the students in New Jersey. Because what happens is the particular pilot has no benefit except to certain people, not to the students, with the funding of education. When you do a residential pilot, what happens is you bring more students into the districts, but no funding to support the student, which causes probably and most likely increased enrollment, possible layoffs, and not the great education that each child or student deserves in this state. And I'd like to have our board members agree with me on this, to have the NJEA study this and have a resolution made up.
No, New Jersey School.
You mean New Jersey School Boards?
New Jersey School Board Association, excuse me.
I will check. I believe, first of all, NJSBA already has that as policy language. But even if they do, we can still adopt a resolution and send it to our assemblyman and our senator, basically reaffirming it with a copy to New Jersey School Boards. If they don't, we can craft that language and introduce it for the delegate assembly in May.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's any other discussion, I'd like to open up for the public. If anybody, any information, any questions, comments come before this board, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Anybody?
Real quick, right? John Bovary, 1210 Harbor Club Drive. Totally, not new, but old. Before Christmas, advertising marketing company was offering to do something to give us projections, and we would probably just steal their information and use it ourselves. Did we go forward with that?
Yeah.
Actually, the consultant was in the district today.
Good, so we'll get some results in a couple months or so.
He was walking the district to get a landscape of the buildings and the fields.
Gotcha.
Thank you, John. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public portion and entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.